Hello there. It is 9:57 a.m. Friday, the 6th of March, 2026, and I'm on the Appalachian Trail. It was difficult for me to determine last night if I was going to try to sneak away to be by myself or if I was going to go to a shelter and spend some time with whoever might be there. But, I think good decision making got the best of me, and I decided to go into the shelter, and I had a lovely evening hanging out with folks. A big part of the reason why I enjoy this, and I have to say, if I didn't already articulate it here, I'm going to go ahead and do it again regardless. But, the reason I like the Appalachian Trail is because I basically just view it as my favorite restaurant. If people ask me, why would you do it again? And it's like, well, why would you go to the same restaurant? You already know what you're going to get, and you like what that is, I view the Appalachian Trail the same way, and so a big part of that is the people, of course. Cell phones and social media, I've said my piece to this point. I'm sure I'll keep talking about it, but it makes the world seem like a scary place where everyone is mean and hostile, or at least everyone who's not on your side. I suppose there are digital factions of people to find comfort within, but for me personally, I don't like any of that. And the Appalachian Trail, one of my favorite things about it is that even though it really, really sucks most of the time, people who are out here couldn't be happier to share that with you. It's a completely different take on reality. There's so many people who I've met where I'm just like, man, the trail is the best. And they're like, it really is. And I'm like, yeah. And you can really only say that as soon as you've realized how much it sucks, And a big saying on the Appalachian Trail to that end is to embrace the suck, And boy, as soon as you embrace it, it's just, it's the best. The trail is the best. So yeah, last night hung out with quite a few people around a fire. Shout out to the people who I met. I can't remember most of their names, but I do recall, because he's hard to forget, Harry the Wine Fairy. 21-year-old kid from Florida, St. Petersburg area. And just a character, The kid had Riz, if you know what I'm saying. And if you don't, look it up. But he was funny, cool guy to just bounce jokes off of, And yeah, I lamented that I wasn't able to do what I sort of wanted to do as a knee-jerk reaction, which was to, go to my tent and talk to myself, which I do love to do. I do be loving that, y'all. But I'm not out here for that either. To me, that would be just as sinful as being on my phone when I was around the fire or something, which, to be honest, several people were. And I was just like, damn, I hope that's, if my understanding of things like technology and social media are at all accurate, I hope that this experience will break you of this, I guess addiction, for lack of a better word. But hey, if it doesn't happen that way, so be it. But yeah, I definitely have a very stark and strong love-hate relationship with the state of technology, and not in a typical way. I find that a lot of people who say they don't like technology are the ones who are addicted to it. And I guess the reason I don't like it is because I don't like to see people addicted on their behalf. And I'm just that really sucks, to think that you can't put your phone down and that you can't stop looking at Instagram. That if there's even a single moment in your life where, stimulation has halted, the first thing you do is look at social media. And I'm one to talk because I'm listening to music and podcasts all the time, but I just consider that to be, and maybe this is just a biased way of justifying my behavior while damning others, but listening to music and listening to podcasts feels productive, I don't feel there's no taxing of my mind or spirit from doing it. I love music, and so listening to it is fun. I love podcasts because I like to listen to people talk, and it's fun. And yeah, just by and large, I just don't think people have a healthy relationship with social media, because it's not like there's an amusement park made out of smartphones that you go to so that you can have like the ultimate social media experience. It seems like most people do it by default and then kind of just get lost in it. I think I might be getting to the creek that's my first water source in 6 miles. But yeah, so I wanted to try to just catch things up a little bit as I make my way on what I hope is a gentler part of the trail. I didn't look too closely because I don't really care, but this morning the distance between where I started at Hawk Mountain and the first water source was like 6 point something miles. And I was just like, okay, that's fine. Like, I can definitely walk for 6 miles without needing any water. So I haven't been carrying any, but it will be crucial for me to camel up once I get there. So I might have to do an abrupt pause, depending on where this creek actually is. I'm not entirely sure. It's called the Justice Creek, Justus, all one word, Justice Creek. If you're interested in looking up where exactly I am close to on the Appalachian Trail at this very moment, that's how you would find out. I suppose it's about 23 miles into the trail, beyond the approach trail. But let me go ahead and just rewind to this big time to the other night, and not even last night, but the night before that. So, I was a little bit nervous. I guess, what was that, Wednesday? Thursday, what's the day? Friday? Did I start? Yeah, so Wednesday night. I was like nervous about sharing shelter space with this person who I had heard talking when I was kind of scoping things out, because he said that he was sick and he was coughing and stuff like that. But ended up meeting him. His name was Listener, and he was a really cool guy. I actually ended up having the complete opposite opinion of him after spending, a few minutes with him. I was like, man, this is the kind of guy that makes me really like the Appalachian Trail, because he's just so positive, and I'm sure he has his moments, but it's just nice to be around people who are really stoked on what they are doing and what you are doing. And when you share that thing, it's just a special kind of connection. Again, just like an exuberance for life rather than a lamentation for life. There's a lot of exuberance out here on the Appalachian Trail, especially when things get hard. You gotta pull out that smile more. Like, that's probably your greatest asset out here, the thing that you need to make sure you pack and use early and often, I suppose. It'll get you through whatever hardships are ahead, and there are sure to be many, many. It's supposed to start raining today, in fact, which is I won't even say it's a shame, because based on my research into the rain event, it looks like it's going to be pretty minimal. So, less than 1/10 of an inch. And I don't even know how to quantify that. Like, I don't know what that means. All I know is that, that sounds pretty dry to me. So, pressing on, feeling good, planning on doing 20 miles today. Get to a campsite. There's about 7 miles south of Blood Mountain and Mountain Crossing. And Mountain Crossing is an outfitter's. There's a lot of names here, so don't worry about it, or look it up if you want to. But Mountain Crossing sits at actually, do I even know what the name of that gap is? I can't think of it, but it's the first opportunity for you to resupply and get more food. So I'm excited about the idea of getting there tomorrow, go up and over Blood Mountain, and then hang out at Mountain Crossings for a while. And every time you get to one of these resupply points, you kind of reset the odometer a little bit. Like, at this point, I have just enough food to get me to where I need to be. I might have one extra portion of something, I'm not sure, which I will be sure to eat before I get there, so that I show up with no food in my bag, because that's the way you're supposed to do it, quote unquote. Supposed to is a dangerous word. I don't like that, remember? But that's the way I like to do it. I like to get just enough food to do exactly what I was envisioning. And so, there's a pretty thin margin of error there, because if something were to happen, then you don't have extras. But by and large, just like carrying an expansive medical kit, if you need more than just like, I don't know, a Band-Aid, really, then you probably shouldn't be doing whatever kind of work you think you need, like, because like it's outside of your skill set and expertise to try to bandage yourself beyond that. And so similarly for me, I'm like, well, if I got to a situation, which historically I never have, not to say that I wouldn't, but if I got to a point where all of a sudden I had severely misjudged my food, I would assume that there would actually probably be a higher order priority for me to address. Like, I don't know, I can only imagine that like a severe injury would cause something like that. And I do have like an SOS beacon, so I could always push that button and get rescued, like the princess that I am. So it's really not a big deal. You can, out here, you know, this is just like a different kind of amusement park for me. Speaking of amusement parks, like, it's just one that, like, it doesn't cost any money. Well, I guess it does. You have to pay to be here, but admittance is free. That's cool. And it's just really, really difficult. So maybe even more so than a restaurant, I guess I could consider this my Disneyland. It's like, if you've been to Disneyland once, why would you go back? You know, it's like, oh, well, it's because I enjoyed it. It's like, well, that's exactly why I'm here as well. So, Wednesday night, hung out with Listener for quite a while after making my clip. And another guy showed up. His name was Dance On. Shout out to Dance On if you're listening. And he was from Oregon. And he is a PCT finisher who is now doing the AT. So Listener and I were both excited about having someone uninitiated but familiar with the lifestyle. It's kind of like, I don't know, it really is like Biggie and Tupac, you know? It's just like two different styles, but the same art, I suppose. So hung out with all of them, and that was nice. And then right before going to bed, as luck would have it, as I was walking to where I was cowboy camping outside of the shelter, just to have another, you know, margin of health security, I tripped on a rock and like hurt my toe. And there's a decent amount of blood, and it was a good little scrape. It certainly looked worse with all the blood than it actually was, but I just thought that was funny. The Appalachian Trail's like, you thought the road walk was bad, huh? Well, let me remind you of let me show you my references. You know, millions of rocks out here, sticks. It's been, well, ultimately, so far, it's been such good walking. Like, I really, you know, I didn't really know what I was going to get out of road walking to the Appalachian Trail, but I knew it would be worth it. And so far, it is just an immense appreciation for the terra not so firma beneath my feet, you know. Just, it feels like a dream out here to walk like this after walking on the pavement. And mom and dad, shout out to my mom and dad, you guys really don't need to worry about my feet. I wish I'd never said anything. I'm really just saying anything at all because it's part of the documentation, and it is an honest way that things feel right now, but I assure you, all is well. I've actually been hiking in my sandals for this is the second day, and that's not necessarily because I couldn't or can't wear my shoes. It's just because it feels so nice to have my feet out, you know, even wearing shoes that aren't actively causing abrasions, like when I was biking, you know, my feet would just get really sweaty and really, you know, they just feel cramped and gross, and they would smell bad. And out here on the trail, it feels so nice just to have my feet out, because it's just none of that, you know. So I've just kind of decided that I'll just keep wearing my sandals for as long as it's practical, and if it starts to rain soon, which it's supposed to, then I'll switch back to my shoes, because these sandals won't have any utility in the rain. The whole point is that my feet feel open and free, and if the rain is causing them to be wet and sad, then I might as well just put shoes on, because it's going to be wet sad anyway. So, hurt my toe, got in bed, went to sleep, got up, and woke up at around 6:50. 6:50 seems to be the mark, my dude. I think I got up at 6:34 this morning, but really didn't start to rouse until about 6:50, which I'm loving. I love being back on this kind of a schedule. It's so hard in the real world to like wake up at a specific time if you don't have anything to do and you're sleeping inside. I would wake up at like usually no later than 8:30 at my parents', but even that felt like a severe like blow to my ego first thing in the morning, because I just felt like I was late to the day, and the time will be changing here soon, a couple weeks, which is exciting. And I look forward to that. Let me think about it. I think that means it will get lighter. I don't remember which one it is, but I know it's a good one. Fall backwards sucks. I know spring forward, so 7 would be 8, so I guess it would be 7:55, so the sun will be rising later, which I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I am a big fan of like just getting up when the sun comes up and going to bed shortly after it goes down, unless there's any other reason for staying awake. But slept well at the first trail at Amicalola, and got a bit of a wild hair, I was like, man, again, like I have just enough food to get to Blood Mountain, but if I could supplement those calories at all with something really good, I'd really love to do that. And so I had a friend, Mike, shout out to Mike from Raven Gap Presbyterian Church, who wanted to come kind of see me off and also just kind of see what the trail is like from mile 0, which I guess that's really mile -8, because you have to do an 8-mile hike just to get to the beginning of the Appalachian Trail proper, if you're actually doing the math. But yeah, so before Mike came out, I walked 1.3 miles and did 1,000 feet of elevation gain to go to the lodge up at the top of Amicalola Falls, and I had an awesome breakfast. So many eggs, so many sausages, so much bacon, coffee, water. It was awesome. And then my friend Mike showed up, and he joined me for a bit. Mike, thank you very much again for picking up the tab there. I assure you, I ate the amount of food of 2.5 men, so whatever they charged you, you got your money's worth, and I certainly did too. I was hardly hungry yesterday after all that food. I mean, it had to have been like, it's hard to say, 3,000 or 4,000 calories of like pure protein and fat, like, just really, really nutrient dense, and just really, really good stuff. And Mike was great company, asked very insightful and, fun, probing questions. And, we had a ball, hung out at that general area for, I don't know, Mike and I were together for about 2 hours, I think. And, I kind of showed him, the shelter that I had stayed out last night, and we went through the orientation and registration process together. He had his cute little dog, Skippy, so it was a family affair, And yeah, it was a good little time, and I hit the trail proper. I think it was like right at 10 a.m., which was good, no problem with that. Let me see if I can finagle my gear a little bit, getting close to the creek here. It's almost time to drink some water, if you know what I'm saying. And I think that you do. But yeah, again, Mike, thanks for coming out, and thanks for being interested, and a good sport about, following my crazy schedule in the morning. This is an interesting creek. This would be a really cool place to camp. We'll have to see if that's even logistically doable at the bottom. But yeah, I'm about to take like a maybe 10-minute break here, camping north of creek. So I don't want you to camp at the creek. It makes sense. People will be pooping and peeing into the water, I'm sure. But I'm gonna take a little break here for a minute, drink some water, consult my map to see how much water we have ahead of us, so I can determine if I need to be conservative or liberal with what I do here. So yeah, I'll put a pin in Mike. But yeah, thanks again, Mike, for everything. That was a really fun and spirited way to start everything out, and I greatly appreciate it. I'll be right back. All right, just had a nice leader down at Justice Creek, and I'm on the move. I'll be taking a lunch break here, another six-ish miles at Woody Gap, which is cool because I know Woody Gap. I think from there, I don't know, it's only maybe 15 miles to Blood Mountain or something like that. Probably more than that. But yeah, that's also Woody Gap is like a pretty big cycling destination in Georgia, and I've biked to that area a few times. I was never really a big fan of driving all the way out here just to bike around. It's like, why don't we just bike out there and then not do any of the climbing and then come back? It's more my style. But in any case, yeah, there's something called 3 Gap and 6 Gap out here for cyclists, and it all kind of, coincides in the same area. And so some pretty big climbs out here on the bike. It's like a 100-mile route if you do all 6 gaps, and it's like probably pretty well over 10,000 feet of elevation gain. So between here and there, like I said, about 6 miles. And then 1,500 feet of elevation gain for me to get there. Also, Dad, for whatever reason, shout out to my dad. If you like these clips being in the middle of the action, let me know. For some reason, I was just wondering. I was like, I wonder if my dad likes me actively hiking more, or if he would prefer me to be less out of breath and sitting somewhere recounting everything. But hey, as Big Boy said, you got to get in where you fit in, and this is about as close as I can get in to fit in me making up for not doing a clip last night. So anyway, I should say, I just noticed as I was putting my backpack back on, I am the 638th person to register this year at Amicalola and Begin, which is about 50% less than the average number that I have had during the years when I have started at the Appalachian Trail. It has typically been sometime within March, I think. God, I don't even remember when I started it the first time. March 20th, I don't even know. And then after that, it was, I think, March 11th. But anyway, it's always been within the month of March. And when I was looking at my previous tags, which also have the numbers on them, they were like in the 1100s. So not as many people out yet, which is good. I like that. I'd prefer it to be, less competition for the precious few resources that are out here. And certainly don't want to get into a situation where you're dealing with crowds at a shelter or campsites. Like, that's a bummer, So anyway, yes, thank you, Mike. I'm trying to think. There really wasn't too much to report yesterday about anything in particular on the trail. It was just kind of nice to walk out and walk into it. I think, I guess I wrote a few things down, which I could certainly talk about. But, the thing that I remember most yesterday was kind of coming to terms with kind of, I guess, the general pace and distance that I want for this time on the trail. Kind of already mentioned that I don't want to do the 4-state challenge. That could change, but at least right now, I remember in 2022, I was talking about it like a lot, considering it was, pretty far out there. In case you don't know, the 4-state challenge is walking through 4 states in one day. So you go through Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and then you end in Pennsylvania. And as I mentioned, it's a 40-plus mile day. It's a long one. I've done it twice successfully, and the second time, my only explicit goal was that I wanted to finish before it was dark, and I did. Had a friend out there, shout out to Birdman, if you happen to be listening. I should text him. But yeah, he joined me for it, and that was his first 30-mile day and his first 40-mile day, and he really, really did a number on his feet doing that. I saw some pictures because we kind of started walking at different paces after the 4-state challenge, and his feet just look like ballooned up little piggies. So hope you've recovered, my dude. I'm sure you have by now. But yeah, 4-city challenge, it is fun. I really did enjoy that, and now I feel like I'm already starting to talk myself into it. But all that just to say, yesterday I was kind of thinking, in my advanced age and experience and maturity, I was just like, well, when I was bike riding, like I kind of found that sweet spot. Like as long as I did like at least 60 miles, I was very satisfied with the day, because I was like 50 would feel like too little, 80 would feel like too much, because then it's just like, what are you trying to prove here? 60 to 70, somewhere within that range, it was like, okay, it was like I put in a solid day of work, not so much that it like takes more than what I'm willing to give of myself. And so being out here and hiking, doing the road walk to get to the beginning, I think that 20 miles is kind of a sweet spot for me right now. Like it also kind of puts me in a certain kind of category where I likely won't see anyone who I have met so far ever again. And that will continue to be the case anywhere that I stay, because I'm about, at this point, if 20 miles is the average, that's kind of like basically twice as much as anyone is doing. So I'm like doing 2 days of walking in a single day. And that'll change as everyone kind of gets stronger and calibrates as they continue to go north, if they're lucky enough to do so. But yeah, I think that is the sweet spot. I'm sure there will be days that I do more. I'm sure that there will be days that I do less. I mean, yesterday, and this kind of comes into the whole conversation that I was having with myself, I was just thinking, like, I had told Mike, and I'd kind of just put in my own head that I wanted to do 20 miles. But if I was going to do 20 miles, that was going to put me in a bit of an awkward position, because there was no water where the 20-mile mark would have been. And I like to camp in a place where I don't have to worry about like not having water, because that's just a trouble that you don't need unless you have to endure it. And so I was just thinking, I was like, well, I was actually tempted several times to stop at like mile 13, because I was like, I'd found a couple of spots close to some really nice looking rivers, and I was like, man, that would be a nice spot to camp. But it was only like 4 o'clock, and I was like, my food situation the practicality of it started pulling me to keep walking. But I certainly considered it. I did as much as even stopping walking to observe the more tempting and alluring areas. But I decided to press on. But yeah, I do feel pretty comfortable with the 20 mile per day kind of pace. Like, 20 miles walking is like, it feels very, very doable no matter the terrain. Even like looking at the elevation charts I've already done like 2,500 feet or something like that just to get to where I am right now. About to do another 1,500 over this 6 miles. And I just look at it and I'm just like, well, I mean, respectfully, if this is all just my opinion based on my own experience, but I look at that and I'm just like, well, that's not very much. Biking around Georgia, where my parents live, in Raven Gap, like, there are some punishing hills out there. There are single roads that can give you 1,000 feet of elevation gain, easy. I usually avoid them, but sometimes, if I'm feeling a little spicy, I'll make me up a route that takes me up like the worst possible imaginable roads. The worst possible roads imaginable. Yeah. So yes, that's kind of where I'm standing now. Like, 20 miles a day basically means, what the trail will take me 100 days basically. All things considered, we'll see. I mean, that's 100 active days. I surely will be taking zeros and having shorter days out of logistical necessity, because that's just the way things go out here. Consistency is a lot more difficult when you're in the woods, But I'm so far 1 day into the trail, very happy with where I am at in terms of like kind of acclimating myself to this experience, and kind of again like not having any firm expectations, letting the thing itself just kind of unravel and unfold. I've barely been on here for 24 hours though, so we'll see. It's also very important that On the Appalachian Trail, you have to be as supple as you can be and as adaptable as you can be, because things will change. Things will get easier and they will get harder, mostly harder. But hey, that's the fun part. That's why we're out here, to embrace the suck, my dude. So, yeah, that was kind of the only thing that I really remember about yesterday, which is like, you know, one of the main reasons I don't like to record the day after when I record after a day, I just don't remember any of the nuances of that specific day. You know, it's all been consolidated into memory over the night, and the things that didn't make the cut, I can't even remember them. So I'll go through the few list items that I have, and then we'll leave it there for now. I intend to make another clip tonight if all goes well and the situation is kind of what I'm hoping it will be, which, well, I don't even know. I might just end up doing these in the middle of the day now instead of at the end. We'll see. Again, you got to be adaptable. So I can't just assume, like on my bike ride, that I'll have perfect solitude at the end of the day. And honestly, I don't really want that anyway, because, again, the community and interacting with it meaningfully is a big part of why I want to be out here, and I don't need to be talking to myself in spite of that. You know, I want to be a part of that. So we'll see how that all evolves. So yeah, I'll get to my list items now, and I guess I'll briefly speak. Is there anything special about last night? Harry the Wine Fairy was funny. Definitely enjoyed talking with him. He had brought 3 liters out of wine, and so he was able to make wine appear out of nowhere, and thus his trail name, I suppose. But yeah, he was probably the highlight, hanging out with him and talking, like I kind of already mentioned. So let's get into the list notes, shall we? I'm just going to read this and then I'll riff. Only in civilization can you beg for mercy. So I was just kind of thinking the differences between road walking and now being a little bit deeper in the woods. Like, it's just a lot harder to pull the ripcord, you know? Like, there were quite a few things that changed as soon as I finally stepped foot on the trail, and that was one of them. It's like, you know, you're sharing roads with cars, so it's not particularly nice per se, you know? Like, most people don't enjoy road walking, let alone tolerate it and embrace it as much as I do. But, you know, one good thing about being on the road is that you have a safety net, you know? There's people driving by all the time. If you had like heat stroke, or if you had miscalculated your food or water, or if you just simply couldn't walk, like, you could probably flag down a good Samaritan who would give you a ride, and then you'd be good. So out here, it's a little bit harder to cry uncle, you know? Like, you're just kind of stuck in the woods. Not that you're completely stuck, but it's certainly a more like enveloping sense of desolation, you know? And that's one of my favorite things about the Appalachian Trail as well, just how much it deprives of you, like basic stuff. And then once you finally get that basic stuff again, boy, is that ever a reason to celebrate. So, yes, Daniel. Shout out to Daniel. It's a guy who I met after walking up the stairs, the Amicalola Falls stairs, which, funny enough, I actually walked up twice. Walked up them once to go have that breakfast with no pack, and then walked up again after Mike bid me adieu and bon voyage. So that was with my pack, and I'd seen Daniel, honestly. Daniel, can I be honest with you? I'd kind of noticed that it seemed like he was trying to catch up with me, and I was like, nah, not gonna let that happen. So I put on the gas a little bit, and then he was very complimentary of my fitness and physique, the ability to do what I was doing with the pack on. Little did he know that I was trying. So there you go, Daniel, a little glimpse behind the curtain. This is how I try to atone with my ego, transparency and vulnerability. Another thing that I thought about after hanging out with Listener at the shelter is that I don't really think that I'm a very good storyteller. I don't really care if you listening agree or disagree, but for my own self-image, as much as I hate to say it because I feel like it's way too self-congratulatory, I think I can probably frame it in a way that I appreciate and approve of. But I do think that the details of life, I kind of filter them through my own experience, primarily philosophically. I don't really care about the details. I don't really care about building a narrative and something that kind of builds up tension and then there's some sort of a payoff to the story. I don't find myself being very good at that generally. I don't really like telling the story of my trail name because I just feel like I don't know how to frame it in a way that makes it intriguing. It's just a guy offered me a ride. I said no thanks, and then he called me a moron. I can definitely stretch it out with more details, but those details just don't really matter. The point is, I was looking for something stupid and I found it. And that was for primarily philosophical reasons. Talk about ego. Historically I've never liked politics either, because I think politics are just too transitory. And honestly, they're just very dramatic human stories that take place on a national and global level. And I'm just these stories suck, I don't like people pretending that this is information that's actually important. And, you do you. Hike your own hike, watch your own news, whatever you want to do with your time and with your attention. I completely respect that. But for me personally, politics has always just seemed like a waste of space in my mind. Because it only ever seems to serve to aggravate and to, make people feel disempowered. And again, there's this presumption that it is actually objectively important news, which I don't think that it should just get strictly because of its own self-imposed gravitas. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. The details of my life, I kind of just, there is a story there that can be told, but it's not really going to be done by me. To anyone who's ever told me that I should read a book, I always just shudder at the idea because, first and foremost, I don't like to read. And so subjecting other people to have to read to me seems like some kind of hypocrisy and contradiction that I cannot abide. Because I'm just I don't want to make someone sit down more than they already were and read stupid words that I said or wrote. And so I don't want to do that, and I likely never will. If AI gets good enough, I have all my transcripts. I'd be interested to see what kind of a narrative it was able to, compellingly tell based on the way I have described my time out here. But yeah, by and large, I ain't no storyteller. This note's cool. I like the name of it. The Chrysalis in Shedding Water. So along with along with the differences between road walking and being on trail is now, I might have already mentioned this a little bit, but yesterday I actually got to do it, which was great. So I'm no longer carrying water actively, and on the road walk, that wasn't a luxury that I was able to afford myself. So for the entire time that I was walking, I was carrying 9 pounds of water, and that sucked. That was a huge part of, the difficulty that I was having with my feet and everything in general. I mean, it's a good crucible for trialing all of my gear and making my body get used to something that really, really sucks, with the promise that it will soon be, the load will be lessened, literally. But yeah, now, again, I just show up thirsty and I can plan my walks around, grabbing water when it's convenient and not actually having to hold any, that's, if there's any advice that I could give anyone that's like the most innocuous thing, it's just like, don't carry water. Again, I already mentioned it, but since I'm on a roll and I can't remember everything I said before I paused this, it's just like, figure out what your pace is, figure out what you're comfortable with walking without drinking any water. I mean, most people have some kind of a stopwatch, either on their phone or on their wrist or whatever. And it's just like, do a little experiment. Like, figure out how far you can walk comfortably. And then you just don't have to carry water for that amount of distance. I can hear some water that I'm getting close to now. And if I go by it more directly, I might scoop up a half liter just to quickly throw down the tank, doesn't hurt. But yeah, not having to carry water is just such a luxury. My pack went from 40.3 pounds to 30.3, I think it was, or 31.3. I guess that would be 9 lbs. So better in you than on you, my dude. No doubt about that. So I have something, a little patent pending. Shout out to Backpacker Radio. They have a segment called that. So I drink a lot of Red Bull. I mean, not a lot, but I had 2 a day for a couple of the days that I was walking to Amicalola, and I really enjoyed that. It was like sweet, and it was caffeine, and it wasn't too crazy of either one. And so, because I have this jar of honey, I was trying to think how I could actually eat it and consume it without feeling like I was just doing it out of the due course necessary to get rid of the weight. And I realized I could just throw a bunch of instant coffee into it and then basically make my own trail version of Red Bull, which I'm calling Trail Bull. I took a picture of it. It might be the album art for this episode. But yeah, it's been pretty great. Just took 4 packets of Folgers and then poured that into the honey. And now I have a sweet little concoction that is as close enough to Red Bull as makes no difference as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, dude, pretty sweet. Okay. Well, I was listening to something and I realized, I had mentioned that like it's really difficult for me to accept the kindness of others. And that's actually not exclusively strictly true. It's just that I'm very choosy with what I will accept. Like, Mike bought my breakfast. Again, thank you, Mike. And so I realized, I will very gladly accept food and alcohol. Like, that doesn't bother me whatsoever. The only thing I don't want is for someone to, like, basically be a part of my movement. Because the movement is the most fun part, and it's the thing that I value the most. And so that's the sacred cow. That's the hill that I'll die on. I won't accept help in that regard. But I'm going to scoop up a little thing of water real quick, and then we'll keep going. I'll probably just grab a whole liter and then drink that again. So just a moment, I'll be right back. All right, grabbed myself a liter, and I'm currently breaking my own rules. So here you go, another walking contradiction, literally. I went ahead and put it in my backpack. Usually I'll just carry it in my hands because I don't even want to desecrate my backpack with anything like my bag having to carry this substance of questionable value. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I've got a liter now. As soon as I finish this, I will quickly withdraw it and drink the rest of it. And yeah, man, living the dream. So one thing I did think yesterday about, because, I enjoy myself a carbonated recovery beverage of, alcoholic nature. And I really don't know why there isn't a bigger industry. I mean, I was thinking about this so much yesterday that I was like, I should just get off the trail and do this right now. But dehydrated alcoholic drinks. I can't conceptually think of a reason why that wouldn't be doable. Even the carbonation, I think, could be replicated. If you think about something like pop rocks, my understanding is that the way that they pop is because there's CO2 crystals in them. And so I think I'd have to look into it. The only thing that would be like prohibitive, it would be if the amount of dry content would be so much heavier than if you just carried it in as a full beverage. But yeah, I might leave this on my list and do a little bit of research with Gemini and get back to you. I'm pretty sure I've already looked into this before. One track mind. And I think that the technology for creating it does exist, but maybe the market just isn't interested because, like, if you're not through hiking, then who really cares about dehydrated alcoholic drinks? You know, most people are driving or at home when they're thinking about transporting alcohol, and you know, the most you might have to do is taking it from a store, putting it in your car, taking it from the car, and putting it in your home. So there's not really much, especially because, you know, dehydrated alcoholic drinks most likely are not going to taste quite as good as the real thing. But we're talking about low standards here. And yeah, I think, you know, even if a viable product could be made, the market of hikers is probably large enough for it to be a viable business. Maybe I should stop talking about this. This could be my get out of jail free card. And they say alcohol's bad for you. Let's see, what else? Okay, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, here I am. How far am I away from Woody Gap? Let us see. Do some vital statistics here as soon as I can find myself. Let's see. Ooh, come on. Don't do that. What are you doing? Is that Woody Gap? 4.9 miles ahead, 1,200 feet of elevation gain in between. So, sounds good to me. I'll try to post this as soon as I can. Not that really matters for me to say, because you'll hear it when you hear it. But for now, I'll leave it there with a classic. Love you, bye.